Please join me in welcoming Greg Aperian with partner sponsor Corbett and his co-speaker, Greg Monaco, with Let's Go Monaco, keynote session, Re-energize your workforce.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're coming from. My name is Greg Aperian. I am the Chief Experience Officer at Corbett. Corbett is a workplace experience platform, and we are also a partner sponsor here at the conference today. So thanks to the conference for having us here. And I am joined by my good friend and colleague, Greg Monaco.
Hey, Greg, good to see you. My name is Greg Monaco, as Greg stated, and I'm a personal brand coach and storyteller. And I help people tell magnetic stories so they can attract the work they love.
And we're going to try and reduce the word Greg as much as we can during this session here today. But Greg and I both have spent many years working in marketing communications, and the past decade very focused in internal communications and employee experience. And we've seen a lot, and from transformations from organizations going from not really using modern tools to using modern tools to really driving engagement in a way that's meaningful for the business. And the past year and a half, we're not here to talk about the pandemic. We are here to sort of do the opposite and talk about opportunities. And one of those opportunities we want to focus on is how to re-energize your workforce today. And that key opportunity, really is dissected by, a lot has changed. The workplace has changed, and we're still in flux. Some companies have never left the workplace. Some have, left it forever and working remote. And there's a lot in between there with people, working from physical locations, remotely or in the field. And as employers begin to reopen up and bring people back to work, the one constant isn't so much change, it's opportunity. And that opportunity is to reset. We've got nothing to lose. Let go of the old and inefficient and less effective ways of working, and look to new ways of working that instill inspiration in the workforce and help people stay informed and aligned and offer them better ways to connect and be productive regardless of their environment. And as we look to how internal communications work today, for the most part, it's still a very traditional top-down approach. And what we mean by that is leadership and corporate communications work together to control that message, and it flows downward throughout the organization. So they communicate what they feel the business needs to hear, and that's generally one way in its direction with little to no mechanisms of feedback or ways to entertain conversations, and minimal targeting. So it's the same message to everyone, which sometimes works and often doesn't resonate because relevance resonates, right? And every leader that's interested in seeing results from their internal communications, and every communicator loves this word engagement. And as you dissect what engagement really means, it's how people are sort of interacting with your content. Are they viewing it? Are they clicking on it? Are they sharing it, etc.? And without relevance, you don't see much of that. So we don't think that that's the only way to do it. We think that there's a bottom-up approach too. And there's a lot of benefits to that. Greg, what do you think about the benefits of that?
Well, I mean, as you said, there's an opportunity here to connect. And this bottom-up approach in tandem with the top-down approach actually incites conversation. And as we all know, over the past year, we've been in isolation. So this kind of conversation, I think people are ready for. And there's a super opportunity for it.
There is, and what's really amazing, whether you know it or not, is this technology exists out there. Technologies like Corbett can enable safely and securely employees to communicate. They can create short form and long form articles, submit videos and or right from their phone, right? They can submit images like Instagram type content. They can share URLs and curate them. They can solicit feedback through polls and surveys, or even send real-time data. And with this, it can all be controlled, or depending on your strategy, you can unleash your workforce and let them do this because you trust them. And as Greg and I have talked a lot about this over the years, we're scratching our head trying to figure out why are most organizations still so fearful of this. And I think the answer lies in their readiness. What ready means, those who have taken advantage of this and using modern technology and enabling this have documented their strategy for internal communications. They have gone out there and recruited and deputized people across the company to be content contributors and communicators to an extent, and have set them up for success by onboarding and training them to this technology and creating governance that's less policies and scare people. If you do this, this will happen, versus encouraging them of a new way to communicate. And when we do that, the benefits are tremendous, because we sort of have content created and published by subject matter experts across the company, across locations, across the globe. And they're targeted to employee segments for maximum engagement. And when I say that, again, I'll remind, any content that is generally sent to someone that isn't relevant to them means there's less of a chance of them engaging with that, with them viewing that, with them clicking on that, with them sharing that, with them commenting on that. And the benefit, of allowing them to do this is you get multiple voices. If the corporation is just the one sending the message, it's a single voice, but multiple voices, shared perspectives on business is really what people want. They're getting it on their own outside of the organization, or maybe inside the organization. And when this happens, what you get out of it is the what's in it for me. So now I'm getting relevant content and information. I have easy access to the data and systems that I need. So I'm not just getting what the company's pushing at me, I'm actually getting to push stuff back, right, to others. And when that's happening, the outcome moves communications from being a support function, like it mostly is today, to driving the business. And I mean, Greg, look at all these people in front of us here, right? Like, there are people with different perspectives and different knowledge and different experience everywhere. And sharing their experiences and mastering their craft, right? And sharing with others how to master their craft is really the opportunity here. And the data that backs this up is pretty incredible, because we don't just say this and say, you should do this and trust us. There is data that we can prove here through sources that content shared by employees gets 8 times more engagement than content shared by the company. An employee post gets reshared up to 24 times more than a company sharing a post. And employees have 10 times the reach together than a single company has on its own. And most companies who have well-oiled running marketing departments are very used to investing in influencer marketing nowadays. And when you look at that, they can make money from that. It's the same concept here. How are companies essentially investing in their employees and turning them into influencers themselves? And when that happens, generally what we've seen from the results is the employees' content is outperforming that of the companies.
And this is no surprise to me, Greg, that this is the case. If you think about your own behavior on social networks, the content that's generated by people is far more interesting usually than the content generated by brands, and you follow people than brands. So it's the personalities, I think, that people want, because there's a more authenticity. It's not so highly curated. And I think that's really what is so magnetic about allowing employees to voice themselves.
I couldn't agree more. I've seen, just by analytics alone, the content that is less polished, more like off the cusp, looking for like a B versus an A plus on it, that's authentic, that's humanized, that's what gets engagement. But there's also productivity that comes from this. McKinsey did a study here and showed that using social technologies and enabling this kind of opportunity for employees drives productivity up by about 25%. So what that really means is, if your employees find it hard to find data, information, content that's relevant to them or that they need and need it quick, if your search tools aren't modern and it takes forever to find something, when you're using this modern technology, it happens much faster, giving them back time in their day, therefore making them more productive. So ultimately, the outcome that we see here is you're enabling your workforce. They're engaging in a personalized way through any type of device or channel that they choose. So the more options that you can give them, the more they're personalizing their own experience, which is creating a better employee experience. And when we see leaders in corporate comms overcome their objections to this and begin to experiment, they see those results soon. So the second opportunity, besides resetting, that we can build upon is looking at your employees as those influencers. And now you have to start to think about, while they're sharing the corporate brand, how do they create their own personal brand? Greg?
So this is super important. And so why is it so imperative that companies pay attention to their employees in building their personal brands? Well, the first reason here is that it's happening anyway. Your employees right now know more than ever before the principles of brand development, the benefits of brand development, and they have the tools available for them to develop their own brands and their own voices out in the market. And so your employees right now have amazing role models that are out there right now doing this same kind of work. And so this is obviously LeBron James, and he's known as a basketball star, arguably the best basketball player who has ever lived. What you're witnessing right now with LeBron James, and I'm in personal brand development here, so I pay attention to this stuff. What you're noticing with him right now is that he's actually laying a runway for what happens to LeBron James after his basketball career. So LeBron James 10 years from now, he's planting the seeds of being more of a social activist. So you're seeing that in real time right now. Your employees are also witnessing this for them and learning from what LeBron James is doing. As a matter of fact, The Rock has done this already. He's already made this kind of transformation. He was a guy who was known as a WWE wrestler, and he is now this gentle giant of a motivational speaker, helping people identify with living their best life. Living big, living better. If you follow him, and I follow him, I mean, who doesn't love The Rock? But I follow him on Instagram, and he's got these great motivational messages for people. So he's already living this, this voice that was beyond his current vocation. So your employees are noticing this, they're seeing this, and they are also laying runways here. And there's another example here that I think is super helpful for you to understand. Charli D'Amelio has the largest TikTok following in the world, and she did it herself. DIY brand development here, not using traditional channels, just using a platform of TikTok and lip syncing and dancing to videos. She's developed an amazing career for herself. So these are the people that your employees are noticing out there right now, and they are starting to figure out how they can start to build their voice right now. So you have an opportunity. You have an option here. The option is, do we merge with that, or do we resist it? So I think that's really important for an employer to understand. And this really came to light for me when I was interviewing an employee for a position at my old agency, and I had a personal blog that I had published for many years. So this idea of brand development is not new. It's been happening for decades here. And I had this personal blog that I had published. So this was a long time ago. My this employee who I hired noticed what I had been writing online. She actually replayed to me some of the things that I had written online, and it shocked me. It shocked me, first off, that she found it. Second off, that she read it. And third, that she remembered what I said. And it made me think, boy, I've got to really think about the things that I'm publishing out there on the internet, because they last. So I can just tell you this: if you have any trepidation about whether this is a good idea or not to encourage your employees to build their voice out there, let me just say this: I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea because the benefits far outweigh the rogue voice that may happen out there. And Greg, I think you have a story to relay here as well.
I do too, because that's more from the employee perspective. I have one from the employee and the employer, where right in the beginning of the pandemic, before we all went on lockdown, we launched a new customer. 40,000 employees globally, manufacturing customer, and really hadn't experimented with user-generated content yet. And of course, when the lockdown happened, right, we all saw a lot of turmoil in the workplace. And in this particular case, they had already launched their platform successfully, had a lot of adoption with it, but they started communicating with their plants. And then before you knew it, they had to start furloughing people in the plants. And the plants had the ability to hear messages from leaders on digital signage screens or use mobile phones or web browsers where they could. And in this case, the CEO did a video session, one of those sessions, like we said, shot from his phone. He's working from home now, out of his home office or kitchen, and explained the situation for the plants. And comments were turned on, and a lot of the plant employees started responding, and were kind of freaked out by the situation and upset with the company about it. And this company, of course, leaders said, "Oh no, what do we do by allowing people to communicate this way?" And I really respect the head of communications at this company, because she had the opportunity to sort of shut it down and go back to the way they did it before, or she did what she did and she said, "No, we're going to sort of curate this and turn this frown upside down." And she did. And they communicated back with those employees who were frustrated, helped them understand the situation, that their intention was to bring them back, and they did bring them back. And they were able to sort of, create a new opportunity at the company for how the company had two-way communications and how they worked. So there's a good story at the end of all this, as long as you have a way to govern and moderate it.
It's such a great example of this conversation that happens, so the leaders can learn from the employees and the employees can learn from the leaders, and it can elevate the company in a holistic way. So I think that's a beautiful idea. So again, we keep talking about opportunity here, but we feel that it's high time that you invest in employees, investing the time and energy into controlling their own narrative out there. And so I think that this is a big deal for three reasons. I'm going to give you three really good reasons here on why you should consider this. Number one, yes, it helps employees grow their careers. Okay, so the evidence is out there. When you're encouraging and helping employees grow their careers, they're more engaged. And as we all know, an engaged employee is an employee that sticks around. So there's a kind of a paradox in the whole thing, where you're thinking that, well, if I'm investing in their personal brand, they're gonna wave bye-bye. That's not necessarily the case here. You're encouraging them to have a voice within and outside the company, which is merging with the way that they're currently thinking, and they're actually more likely to stick around. The second idea here is that you can establish them as thought leaders. So just think about them as being subject matter experts inside and outside of the organization. So what does that mean? So that means that other employees can look to them as the go-to within the organization. That's powerful. But what could perhaps be even more powerful is outside of the organization, they become a subject matter expert. So just thinking about having a virtual network, that slide with all of the people on there, a virtual network of marketers for your organization and thought leaders for your organization that point back to the company. So that's super powerful. And then the third reason here is it raises your organization's profile as an employer. So those subject matter experts are actually helping raise the cachet of the organization so that people look at it favorably. What can this do in a recruitment scenario? Well, this can actually help lower recruitment costs and raise the credibility cachet of the organization. And we all know how hard it is to recruit great talent. So you could actually bring in better talent because they're the voices that are out there representing the organization are leaders. So that's super powerful. So in summary here, the thing is that you have an opportunity here with these technologies to turn your staff into not only a sales, but also a marketing and a recruitment force. And that's super powerful.
So don't be afraid of this. You know, this really can be controlled by strategy and process and technology, and we've seen it work. So think about, you know, as you're bringing people back to the office, and even if people don't get back to the office, how to re-energize your workforce. Thank you all for the time today.
Thank you, Greg and Greg. Coming up next is our first panel discussion today, Key Moments in Onboarding and Career Mobility. To join, return to the Event Hub and click the View Session link.